I'm Cale Sanderson.
I'm Scott Boroff.
And welcome to Fight Lab.
Hey everybody, welcome to Fight Lab episode number 3. Pretty boring week for really any sports fan, not just UFC, with this crazy coronavirus outcry. So we're going to go right into it.
Yep.
UFC London was supposed to be last week, got postponed due to the virus. Columbus is supposed to happen actually next weekend.
Yep.
That is also postponed. And Portland is supposed to happen April 11th, which has already been postponed.
Yep.
So all that being said, it's craziness. Mm-hmm. And people are starting to worry about a big fight that's supposed to happen the 18th of April, which is the Khabib-Ferguson fight.
Yep.
And they have every right to be worried. I mean, the fact that they've already postponed Portland, which is supposed to be April 11th, a week later, Dana's saying that Khabib-Ferguson's still going to happen is kind of wishy-washy there. With that being said, also New York, because they're trying to find a venue right now. And that's been like their biggest struggle too, because someone has to take the fight and host the fight. Tried doing it in Brooklyn. New York said not going to happen. So that's they're still searching for that, and we'll see what happens. But for right now, I feel like it's a little sketch.
The thing they're going to have to deal with too is there's probably not going to be many fans, if fans at all, at this point. I mean, I guess it still could happen, but it's looking like there won't be any fans if the Ferguson and Khabib fight does happen. So Dana's trying to find a spot. He had said that, if I have to, I'll make this fight happen, internationally, on the moon.
But that brings up too, okay, so what about travel?
That's
you say you find a venue, now it's about getting the fighters to that said venue, and that's going to be a big struggle too, because you never know, with
the travel restrictions that are probably going to be going on, it's probably not going to be able to happen overseas. So he, for the Woodley and Leon fight, they were trying to get it on Native American territory, and they actually had found one in Oklahoma for the fight to happen, but it never came into fruition.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Dana said if there's anyone that can get this fight done and make it happen, it's me, and I do believe him. He is good at getting deals done. So we'll see what happens.
But how much power does he really have? I mean,
when the government intervenes, and exactly.
So.
Still skeptical, but hey,
it's a cursed fight, so.
Oh, man. Yeah, if it doesn't happen this time, I mean, there's other factors that go into it, but if it doesn't happen this time, I mean, it's almost like it's not meant to be.
Yeah, take your ball, go home kind of deal. You had your shot, bro.
Yeah. So, we'll hope that fight happens, and Dana's very adamant that it will happen, and I know everyone wants to see it, but I am a little nervous at this point.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, as Scott mentioned, UFC London was postponed. Dana is saying that, hey, UFC London, Columbus, and Portland, those fights will still happen. We're just postponing them. I'm a little skeptical about that, because that means that, Woodley versus Leon will happen at some point. And so Leon actually in that fight, when it was announced that Leon and Woodley would not end up fighting, Leon was stuck in London, didn't really have time to leave his family and come to the U.S., that there was a possibility the fight would happen. So he didn't even want to leave London, because that's where he was for the fight, because they were like, we might move it to the U.S., but it still might not happen. And Leon didn't want to come back for that, so what do you know? Colby Covington steps in, says, hey, America's champ here to save the day. And he says he'll fight Tyron Woodley. And, there was a lot of hype behind that. The fans were into it. Well, it didn't come into fruition just because, with all the 10 people in a group max, that President Trump was recommending, they couldn't get the fight done. Well, now that the UFC has said, hey, these fights are just postponed, they went ahead and postponed those 3 events. They're basically saying, we will make these fights happen. But Tyron Woodley is now saying, hey, I only wanted to fight Leon Edwards because Colby Covington wasn't ready after Kamaru Usman, supposedly he was injured and wasn't ready to fight me as quick as I wanted to get in there.
Yeah.
So now he's saying, no, I don't even know who Leon Edwards is. Nobody knows him. Like, I want to fight Colby Covington. He's number one. So
the back and forth on Twitter between everything going on was hilarious.
Yeah.
And the fact when Colby was calling out this whole thing, he was tagging the wrong person anyways. He was tagging some Leon Scott or something like that.
Colby likes to call Leon Edwards. He always has a name for everyone. And, he's got Ty Quill for Tyron Woodley, Marty Fake Newsman for Kamaru, and for some reason he calls Leon Edwards Leon Scott. He's always done it, and no one gets it.
So some random guy that's 6'4", in case you wanted to know, on Twitter decided that's who he was tagging on there, which is just hilarious. But the whole thing with this fight, I feel like he wants Colby, but he doesn't, because he was talking crap online, but it never seemed like he was too into it. It was more of like a stunt to me. At
this point, though, like, besides Leon Edwards, who's Tyron going to fight, though? If he doesn't want to fight Colby, he's going to either have to face Colby eventually, if he moves on to Leon, through Leon, or he's going to have to face Kamaru Usman again, which we know how that went for him. So I think it's more about negotiation with them, too, with Colby and Tyron. But as I was saying, I think that this is the fight that is most likely to happen over. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think that this is the fight that they want to happen, that Tyron wants to happen. I don't think it's going to happen on Colby's end, and I'll get into that. But this makes Leon the odd man out. He's on an 8-fight winning streak.
Yeah.
He's set to fight Tyron Woodley, which is kind of like a bridge fight into a title fight. And now he's the odd one out because of this whole coronavirus thing.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think Woodley has to fight Leon. I mean, I don't see what the point for Woodley is to try to fight Colby at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had all that beef for years. I mean, they still do. But Colby was going after this fight, like he said. He was on a couple shows, and he said that he's been trying to fight Tyron for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But Colby came out and said, hey, like, I want this fight. I'm willing to save the day. He's here to entertain the people, be America's hero last minute. But
I don't think it benefits Colby at all to take that fight besides the money aspect of it. I think that's the only reason Colby was really going for it in the first place. I don't think that fight really does anything for him.
Well, I actually agree with Colby. So Colby's outlook on it is Jorge Masvidal is going to ask for too much money, and he truly doesn't want to fight Kamaru Usman because it's a terrible stylistic matchup for him. And I actually do agree with that. So Colby, I think he's still maybe a little bit, he's trying to play his cards right, because let's say that think about this. Let's say that Kamaru and Masvidal does happen, which I don't think it really will, but if it does happen, and then Leon and Woodley fight, Colby's odd man out, and then Colby's got to wait even longer. So I think Colby, trying to book it at that moment was a great option for him. Well, Colby's now saying, well, since this ain't happening and it's postponed, I'm going strictly for my rematch with Kamaru Usman, and it's we all want to see that more than anything, but that is a bold move because the UFC still does want to have Usman and Masvidal match up. I personally don't think it's going to happen. Like I said, I think in Masvidal at this point, I don't think he cares that much about the belt. He's got his BMF belt. He's got all the hype behind him. As Colby says, he hit lightning in a bottle. So I think he's looking for money fights, and I just don't see this fight happening. I think Masvidal knows this. Usman's a bad matchup for Masvidal. I mean, Usman is so well-rounded, and Masvidal's got phenomenal striking, but doesn't have much of a ground game. Mm-hmm. So I don't see it happening.
So I guess that kind of leaves us like, where does Masvidal go next? Like, who does he fight? And I don't think he really cares as long as it's going to bring in a paycheck, to be honest. I mean, he's more about the big fight that's going to make him the most money, in my opinion. Yeah. So,
do you think he's looking for a Conor fight?
I think that would bring in the most money. So, I mean, I could see that being a very viable option.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't think he's looking for anyone specific as long as it's going to bring a big paycheck.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. big paychecks are going to be all coming from pay-per-view at this point because no one's going to be – I mean, they could be at the fights, I guess, if this doesn't last like a super long time. But if it's anytime soon, then it's not going to –
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that Masvidal could possibly run out of options if he doesn't really pursue the Usman fight, because I think he wants to fight Conor first and foremost. He says he wants to fight Usman. I think he wants McGregor. He knows McGregor brings in the most money, and we've all seen that. The problem is Conor McGregor wants Khabib more than anything, and he's got a little bit of a road to Khabib, and I don't know where Masvidal could possibly kind of be out of the picture like Leon. He might be left in
the odd man out. He's like the kid that you don't want to take to the birthday party, but he comes anyways, you know.
But, you know, McGregor, he's got some options here. He's got all the options in the world.
And he's like Dana's little star child, you know.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I mean,
sure.
Anything McGregor wants, he's gonna get from Daddy Dana.
That's right.
You know.
So all Leon can really hope for at this point is that, you know, the UFC follows their word and they can get Tyron Woodley on board and they book that fight. And, you know, for Leon, we'll see where it goes. But, you know, I do almost feel bad for him a little bit. He's kind of the odd one out. And this Woodley fight, because, well, after Colby and Usman fought, as we know, we were watching the fight, Edwards was cage side and he was, you know, pointing to the cameras like, I'm next after Usman won. He thought he was getting a title shot. And then he's kind of settled on the point where, well, I'll fight Tyron, and then the winner of that gets the title shot. Well, now that might not even happen. So, I mean, you know, he's really left, really kind of.
But that boils down to how strong this weight class is, honestly.
Oh, that's the thing.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're not, I'm looking at guys outside, you know, the top 5, and I'm like, you know, we got some promising guys up there. When are they going to get their shot, though? I mean, it could be years and years.
Yeah.
It's just so stacked. So, all right, so moving on, another card we're really excited about is UFC San Diego, which is supposed to take place on May 16th.
Yeah, I believe so. It's Fight Night 175 is what it's.
May 16th in San Diego. Well, via Twitter, Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker were going back and forth and saying that, you know, they'll fight when the dust settles and this whole thing clears up. So, are they not going to headline that card now?
I mean, according to online, it says that they would.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm a big Hooker guy, so
yeah. I
mean, I'd like to see it happen.
Oh, we both want to see that fight a lot. I really enjoy watching Dustin fight, so we'll have a little bit of a rivalry. Yeah, that'll be a fun one to watch.
Yeah.
So
it happens.
That would be. I mean, we're talking May 16th. That's a little less than 2 months away, but we're not. Is that card in jeopardy now? I mean, if that card's in jeopardy, then you've got to think that Tony and Khabib isn't going to happen. I
mean, as a sports fan in general, right? You have to like keep an optimistic mindset on everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Just because right now we're left with like, I'm pretty sure like ESPN 8 the Ocho is like showing some like rock skipping competitions and stuff. I mean, like we've stooped down to ESPN 8. So basically what I'm saying is we have to keep optimism in this whole situation. So as of now, I'm going to say this fight does happen, this card does happen. But in the back of my mind, I'm still like,
oh, you're convincing yourself.
Yeah, I'm pretty much telling myself it's gonna happen.
So, that'd be crazy if that didn't happen. I mean, we're about 2 months out from it, and if that doesn't happen, I mean, I think it's a little early to be calling that one off yet. But
yeah, man. I mean, I think it's still early to be calling out. I mean, honestly, the Ferguson and Khabib fight. I mean, that's still a month away.
Yeah,
I mean, think about it. But
well, I think the issue is with why they're really nervous is there's probably not going to be fans there. That's a huge deal for this fight. Fight,
and Ferguson especially just runs off of fans.
Yeah,
I mean he's all flashy and wants everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think
rules baseball.
Yeah, the gloves and the baseball. So speaking of Dustin Poirier, actually. Colby Covington apologized. Yes, Colby Covington apologized to Dustin Poirier. Said he broke a promise. He said that Dan Lambert and himself had made a promise that Colby would keep the gym civil and he wouldn't be talking about the fighters in interviews anymore and starting beef because they want that gym to be united. And, Colby broke that promise on Ariel Helwani's show, apparently.
Yeah.
According to him, he had talked about Dustin and other fighters in that interview with Ariel, and he had said he broke the promise.
It's kind of funny to me that there's even beef to start anyways, just because they are fighting out of the same gym.
That's Colby Covington.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, there's plenty of people out there that he can trash on, I mean, it just feels like
I think it's kind of Colby versus the world now. So.
Yeah, I mean.
But, so yeah, he came out and apologized to Dustin Poirier, and he actually said, he wants to be friends. He said he wanted to sit down with him and talk. And then he actually put out an Instagram post, and I think on Twitter too, saying that, he's sorry. Didn't hear anything from Dustin on it, which I figured Dustin wouldn't respond. So then on the Score MMA show, James asked him, like, well, what do you think about, is this apology to Joanna and Jorge Masvidal as well? And no, he doubled down on them.
He didn't make a promise about them.
No. Apparently, the Dan Lambert keep the gym civil only applies to Dustin Poirier. It doesn't apply to Joanna and Jorge.
It's just like this little section of the gym.
Yeah. So
not the whole gym, just
yeah.
the little.
So he dropped some insults on them more, and you have to go check that out, guys. Pretty crazy, but. Yeah, so pretty interesting. He apologized to Dustin, so we'll see where that goes from here. Maybe a rekindled friendship will happen.
If I don't see him skipping down a little walkway through the woods, I'll maybe be upset, to be honest.
Yeah, don't expect that. Especially just because Jorge Masvidal and Dustin are good buddies, at least we can see from social media.
Right.
And Jorge and Colby don't like each other anymore, so don't expect that, but... All right, guys, so we're going to dive into the fan questions now.
Yeah, so. Just like we've said the past 2 episodes, we appreciate anyone that takes their time to either interact with us or watch our stuff that we put out. I mean, we really haven't even expected the outcome that we've gotten so far. We're really happy with how everything's going. With that being said, we like to take questions from our fans every week to feature on our episodes. So usually take 1 or 2 from each platform. This week we're doing 1 from Twitter, 2 from Instagram.
2 from Twitter.
2 from Twitter, 1 from Instagram. So I'm going to read one of them real quick. It's off Twitter from our buddy, actually, Blake Grafnitz, asked, what do you feel are the long-term effects of the virus and how it's going to affect the UFC? Right now we're seeing a lot of the short-term effects right now for basically postponing fights and possibly canceling fights, no fans at the fights at all. When it comes to how they're being streamed right now, I mean, it's on ESPN now instead of just ESPN Plus. They're trying to open that up to more people. Hopefully that kind of pulls in some new fans. Maybe they'll transfer over to ESPN Plus later. So I think Dana's making a smart move with that.
100%.
Long term, I mean, you're going to have a lot of fights that did get postponed happen later. So, I mean, those are the long-term effects. It's going
to crowd it up.
Yeah, and it's going to turn into, I think, just a big cluster of, like, how are we going to fit these fights into this time frame and money aspects, too. I mean, I know I wouldn't say the UFC is a small business by any means, but, like, small businesses out here from the coronavirus are really taking a hit. When it comes to how they're paying their employees and how they're going day-to-day business. And I don't know how much of a hit the UFC is going to be taking from this whole thing by people not showing up to the things, but I don't know if that'll affect the payout for fights or like the bonuses that they give out. I don't know really what that really changes, but like, and we're not anyone to even know or to say.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, that, all these fights are going to bunch up and it's going to postpone them, because Dana has actually came out and said, hey, every fighter on our roster, I think he actually said, we'll fight 3 times this year. Not every fighter is going to fight 3 times in the year because of injuries and such, but I think what he means by that is they'll be offered 3 fights. They're contracted to have 3 fights a year if they want.
Right.
That's going to be really interesting because it's going to be a huge, just cluster of fights that need to happen. They're going to run out of space. And
I think it'd be kind of cool, too, if because right now we have, like, your fight nights, and then you have your pay-per-view fights or whatever. I mean, who knows? This might even bring out a whole new title for instead of being a fight night, it could be something else, and show instead of maybe two cards a week or something.
Yeah, if they do the weekend fight nights, what if they did one during the week?
Yeah,
I don't think the audience would be as big per se, but what I thought is they'll have 2 to 3 Saturdays a month they'll do fights. Well, I think if this happens, there's going to be 0 breaks. I mean, it's going to be every single weekend they're going to have something. They're going to have to.
Well, I mean, you got to think about, too, is say, even these fights that are postponed right now, like London and Columbus and Portland, right? And these are all postponed. Now, when they postpone them to, let's say, 3 months from now,
mm-hmm.
those fights that were supposed to happen 3 months from now are now going to either be postponed or maybe intermixed with these fights. But I'm just saying, it's a string effect. One thing is going to affect the
100%. It's going to, because they have all these events scheduled out in advance, and it's going to be really interesting. It'll be. But I like what you said about Dana's sees this as an opportunity, and I 100% agree. He's putting it on ESPN, the network.
Mm-hmm.
He tried with these last few events, and that really grows the audience. Just casual or not even MMA fans at all. They turn that on, and then they might become fans, and then they get ESPN Plus, and then they start buying the pay-per-views. I mean, it's a great opportunity.
Plus, I think the UFC is one of those sports right now that we're more likely to see before we'd see any of the other sports come back when it comes to the coronavirus, and so. Even people that aren't casuals they have no interest in it at all. I mean, I watched some dude play cornhole the other day. I'm not a cornhole fan, but I'm just saying it's going to bring in people that didn't even think that they would even be interested into it.
They're going to start watching it even when everything comes back.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a smart business move on Dana's part.
100%. Yeah, he's really looking to grow it and sees it as an opportunity when no one else can. He's going to jump in, fans or not, he's going to make it happen. So, all right, here's another question from Twitter. This comes from Cole Heller, which is actually one of my friends. So, Cole asked, assuming the Tony and Khabib fight happens, who do you think the winner of the fight will go on to fight next? I imagine each person will go on to pursue different fights regardless of the outcome. I'm actually gonna agree with that a little bit. So, let's say Khabib wins. I think if Khabib wins, regardless of, well, I guess. Let's say Conor has a bridge fight between now and Khabib, and he wins, and then Khabib beats Tony. That's the obvious fight. That fight will happen if Conor wins and then Khabib wins. If Tony wins, and let's say Conor's in a place, it gets a little bit interesting. I think Conor still wants that belt, but what about instead Conor wants to fight Khabib non-title fight? And then Tony's left to fight, another lightweight contender. For instance, Justin Gaethje, depending on what happens with him. Dustin Poirier could jump in with Tony Ferguson, depending on what happens. There's so many different factors, but yeah, I think Conor definitely wants Khabib rather than Tony. But Conor's a guy too. He wants the gold wrapped around his waist, so maybe he doesn't matter. He doesn't care if it's Tony or Khabib. He just wants the winner. But
that's how I see it.
Yeah, I do think that's interesting. If I had to pick, though, if Khabib wins, I think definitely it's Conor. If Tony wins, I think Conor would lean more towards just fighting Khabib, and then Tony waits on the winner, or Tony possibly finds another lightweight contender. It'll be interesting to see.
I see it going. I think if Tony wins, then I think Conor does go for Tony.
You think he still wants the belt?
In this situation, even though he wants Khabib, he still wants that belt. But what does it benefit Tony, in the end game? I guess it's not Tony's decision, but...
That's the problem we're seeing, though, with all these guys. They're getting...
Yeah, I mean, but Tony is going to be sitting there, and he's going to, possibly have a rematch with Khabib if, Khabib beats Conor in their fight.
Yeah, that would be... Yeah, there's a lot of different factors.
Because then is it really, is it more of a rematch fight then at that point, or is it, a title fight? I mean...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but... I could see it going either way, where Conor will fight, the winner of either of them, depending on what happens with Conor. If he waits it out for the winner, which he'd have to wait for Khabib with Ramadan, and then assuming Khabib wins, and does Conor fight a Justin Gaethje as kind of a
That's a
tune-up fight.
Part of our next question. Anyways.
Exactly. So we'll go ahead and get into the next question then. This actually comes from my brother Reed. He asks via Instagram, rumor has it that McGregor is going to fight Justin Gaethje next. Do you think that is the best fight for McGregor now, or should he consider other options? So I think, in my opinion, it benefits Conor the most if he fights Gaethje. This is a tremendous... The fans want to see that fight. They love Gaethje's knockout power. They love Conor's striking. This is a phenomenal matchup. This gives Conor a little bit more of a tune-up fight again.
That's what I was just going to say. That's a tune-up fight.
He gets to prepare, for the winner of Khabib and Tony, whichever route he wants to take, because if he sits out, he's got a long time to wait. And
yeah, that's a long time to wait with no fighting.
Yeah. And, Justin Gaethje is very outspoken about winning this fight. And
it's a big money fight, too.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is when Conor was interviewed last year by Ariel Helwani, and, he was talking about making his UFC return, he actually said that he was thinking about fighting Justin Gaethje as his comeback fight. Well, they settled on Cowboy, but now here's Justin Gaethje in a perfect position to fight Conor. And, I think McGregor wins that fight, but, the winner of them is now probably especially if it's McGregor, but the winner of those two would then be the title contender. And I think that's a good fight for him. It's a money fight. It's also a phenomenal matchup and rankings fight. I actually do think this will happen. Conor's striking coach has said that he thinks it'll happen on International Fight Week, which is July 11th. So there's plenty of options, in my opinion, for Gaethje, even if Conor doesn't come through. That division is very competitive in the top half of the rankings, and Gaethje can find another fight. Whether it's, if Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker fight, and whoever wins that fights Gaethje. It might take a little bit of while for Justin Gaethje, but no, there's plenty of better options in Cowboy.
I think that's the good thing about Dana and how he handles everything. The fact that we talk about this all the time is how stacked every weight class seems to be. Yeah. I feel like there's not really a weight class that's...
Yeah, there's the middleweight division's a little bit... It's got real top-heavy good fighters, with Israel, Robert Whittaker, and Paulo Costa, but outside of that, it's a little bit weak. But, we've really seen a burst in the talent, especially with the women lately that are coming up, and even the heavyweight division has got so much congestion in it right now. So, that's a good point. There's a lot of things that need to be sorted out in the heavyweight, welterweight, and lightweight divisions right now. It's getting real cluttered up. So
just like all these fights are going to be.
It's going to be crazy. But the good thing is Dana White is the one that's going to get it done out of anyone. Fans or not, he wants to make the fights happen.
Right.
So.
But anyways, just a little for you guys to know, obviously with fights being postponed and, set back or whatever, we're really going to take advantage of this time, I guess. Most people would probably see it as a bad thing. We're going to stay optimistic through it and basically just try to be creative when it comes to like what we're going to actually be putting out there every week, because we don't plan on stopping that. We're going to keep planning to release every Tuesday is the plan right now. Yeah. So with that being said, it'd be really cool if you guys have any ideas as well. We'd obviously take that into consideration too. So, and we'll tweet it out there probably after this is even posted. But basically we're going to ask for your guys' input on like what you guys would like to see, or even constructive criticism of what you've already seen us do, like what you would want us to do different, or what you could see being a better option for us. We're super open to everything. This is a learning process for us.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, with everything that's going on now, there's obviously less content to cover. We can't cover fights as they happen. So we'll do news every week, but if there's certain segments or ideas or maybe things we're doing that you guys want to see, maybe a little bit differently, we're always open to, input. And
Yeah, and our posters right now are on a standby because no fights are happening.
Yeah, so this will be the way it is for a while.
Yeah, this will be, the setup for a little bit, and, everything falls over sometimes, but kind of like the UFC right now. But anyways, we appreciate everyone that's watched thus far, and we'll continue to watch.
Yeah.
With that being said, that wraps up episode number 3. Thanks for coming, guys, and we appreciate you.
Yeah, see you next Tuesday.